Hey students, here we are to talk about one of the most elegant tactical themes out there. We're going to talk about obstruction. And I'm going to start by showing you this position. And this is going to be, guys, the last position we're going to talk about today. We really need to understand obstruction. We need to do easier exercises in order to get the skills to solve this position. However, if you feel like it, feel free to try to solve it on your own. If you find it excellent, even though out there to say that anyone watching this video right now is not going to be able to find it. If you do, let me know in the comments, guys. I'm curious, but in my experience, no one has been able to find this on their first try before we actually go over this concept. So basically, it is the white pieces to move, and the goal is, of course, to get one of your pawns to the end, get a queen, and win the game. The only hint I'm going to give you is that you need to be careful with this king coming to g3, followed by h5, h4, h3, h2, and checkmate. So if you're thinking of just going for this pawn and getting to the end, you have to calculate this possible checkmate. So with that said, guys, feel free to pause the video right now and work on it. Even if you don't find it, the fact that you're calculating, you're visualizing is going to help you. So try to do it without moving the pieces and see what you get. Now, like I said before, we're going to start with easier exercises. These are going to be from middle game positions, opening positions, end game positions for you to really get the hang of obstruction. And then we're going to come here and finalize with this. But more importantly, guys, at the end, you're going to see how you could continue to practice this theme on your own. With that said, let me take you to the first basic position. Here we are, and like always, every time I put a new position, try to solve it yourself. Pause the video and try to work on it. That way you practice your calculation, your visualization skills. So here it is the white pieces to move, and you're going to see how obstruction allows the white pieces to win this game. So of course, this is a king and pawn endgames, and we need to get one of these pawns to the end. But if you guys remember the rule of the square, I have to calculate that if I move my pawn to f5 right now, and I think of the square or the box, the black king could, in one move, get in the box. So that's not enough. The king is going to get to my pawn if we apply that rule. So I have to do something to make it work. And this is what we do. If you think about it, this is going to be f5, king c5, f6, king d6, f7, king e7, and that's how the king gets us. But what if we could obstruct the path of the king? What if we could put something here so that the king cannot go diagonally and get my pawn? Well, that's where the move pawn to d6 comes handy. Now, if they don't take me, I'm going to either take them or continue to promote. The king cannot get this pawn. And if they take me, now his own pawn is going to be obstructing the way of the king to get to the pawn. So now I could easily push, and this king cannot get to the pawn. This pawn is taking d6 away from him. If he goes around it, still too slow, and I get my queen. So guys, this is one way and one of the forms that you can see obstruction. Now I'm going to show you the other 2 or 3, and that way you have the whole idea. Here, do not start yet, because there are a few moves that need to happen in order for you to get to the critical position. So here's the black pieces to move, and they actually did bishop f4, attacking the rook, and then this rook went all the way to the 7th rank. You should know by now, guys, that rooks are really powerful when they get to the 7th rank. But after queen d6, of course attacking that rook, we want it out of the 7th rank. Instead of retreating, the white pieces brought the other rook to defend. This seems very natural, but there's a very nice obstruction here that the black pieces did to win material. So now you could pause the video and try to find it on your own. And before I tell you the move, guys, this is something that I want you to really remember. Whenever you're attacking a piece and that piece is defended, you should automatically think of ways to get them in trouble. Like, I'll be thinking, how can I deflect this rook, which is the defender? How can I make it go away? How can I take it? And now that you're learning about obstruction, you could think, what if I could obstruct that rook? And the move is knight e5. So I'm attacking the queen, so they don't have time to do anything. And now this rook is not defended anymore. My own knight is getting in the way. And if they take, now their own pawn is actually getting in the way. So that obstruction allows me to collect this rook for free. Alright guys, here's another one. In this one, you're going to be the white pieces, and we have to find a way to get ahead in material. Our pawn is coming this way, but if we just start pushing the pawn, they're going to promote. Even if we take The rook takes back with a check and then goes all the way down to stop the pawn. So how can we make this work for us, the white pieces? So here, guys, this is what we're going to do. We have to find a way to delay the promotion of the pawn. And the only way to do that is to do knight f1. So this pawn cannot go anywhere. The rook cannot even go around to get to my pawn on time. And when the rook takes, this rook is getting in the way of its own pawn. So now I'm free to push. They don't have this check. If the rook just goes out of the way to promote, now I promote first with checkmate. And I know it's very similar to the first one we had, but it's hard for people to actually think about it this way. So now let's go to the next exercise. Okay guys, so this is going to be the last exercise before we go on to the last one that we have to do, which is the very first position I showed you. So this last exercise comes out of this opening. So I'm going to do a few moves and then you're going to get to that position. So it's e4, c5, Sicilian defense. Then the white pieces go knight f3, d6, pawn to d4, pawn takes, knight f6, attacking the pawn, knight c3, g6, and now after bishop e3, the black pieces go knight g4. Now this move in itself is a huge mistake, guys. So now the white pieces could force a way to win material. So take your time here, see if you can figure it out, white pieces to move, and you're going to find a way to win material. Alright guys, if you paused the video and you found it, congrats. We're going to go over it now. So this is how you get to this answer. We can immediately see that our queen is attacking that knight. The knight is defended by the bishop, so we have to think, okay, that defender, if we could deflect it, if we could eliminate it, or now we can also think, what if we could create an obstruction? Well, the move here, guys, is actually bishop goes to b5. Now with that move, the black pieces have to get out of that check. They need to do something about it, and they can actually only block the check. So they could block with the knight here, bishop, or queen. Now queen, of course, doesn't make any sense. We're gonna get that queen. Knight, the same thing. We're just going to take with the knight, pawn takes, then bishop takes on c6 with a fork. So that's not going to work either. Now what if the knight goes to d7? He's not going to be attacked by my knight, but he's creating an obstruction, so the bishop cannot protect the knight anymore. And then the other move that they could do is bishop d7, but it also doesn't work because we could simply take, since we are pinning that bishop to the king. And if the bishop takes, we simply take back and we are fine. So again, thanks to that idea of obstruction, the black pieces have no way to protect the knight. Now we're here with the last position, and you had time, guys, already to give it a try, so I'm just going to go over the answer. So I'm getting to this king and pawn endgames. My pawns are coming this way. I need to find a way to create a pass pawn. And notice how my king is really passive here, so I really depend on my pawns to do this job. And I already see that this pawn could potentially be a pass pawn. So if I just push him, he's going to be a pass pawn. They could do en passant, but then I'm going to take back and I have my pass pawn. But the problem is, if I do it right now, this king is going to just put me in this 6-1 position basically. And even if I push, it's going to come over and put me in checkmate even before I promote. So checkmate, and that's the end of it. So if you try to do this on your own, you should have encountered this problem. We have to realize that before we actually send the pawn, guys, we need to eliminate this guy. That way they don't have this resource of the checkmate. But if we do, now this king is going to go over and get in the box of the pawn, because now when I push, he's going to take me, and look at this, the king is going to take, and he's going to be in the box of the pawn. So that's not going to work either unless you guys start thinking about obstruction. So what if when I take and he comes over, I do my move, okay, so he takes on f5, I push. What if when the king comes over, I obstruct his way? What if I go to d6? I'm attacking this pawn, so he either takes me or moves up. If he moves up, I think my pawn is gone and he cannot do anything. If he goes here, my pawn is just gone. Now if he takes, notice that this is still available for the king to go through. So I could just push the pawn, but still it doesn't work because the king gets to me on time. So that is not going to work either, unless we think, guys, of another obstruction. So d6, pawn takes, and then c6. Same thing, my pawn is about to promote, they need to take me, and now look at this. The king could get in the box, but he just cannot move diagonally because his own pawns are getting in the way. And after a7, there's nothing he could do at this point. Now guys, I know this is already really complex and boring, but we really need to work on this. Believe it or not, this is not the answer. This is just not going to work, because look at this. The moment I take, they don't have to take on f5. They could simply go to f6. And now when the pawn continues to move, the king is going to get in the box easily. Now these obstructions are not going to work. He's coming through a different route. So if I keep going, he's going to get to me before I can promote. So let me put it all the way back, and I promise you guys this is going to be the last try. So I know you're already a little bit confused, but now let's put everything together and see if we can find one detail that we're missing. This is what we have to do. We already know that we have to eliminate this pawn right away, but if we do it, he's going to get too close to the pawn and also too close to f6 to go after my potential passed pawn. So we already know that this route is not a problem. We could create obstructions and the king cannot get to the pawn. But what if we could also obstruct this route? Because that's the other route that he used. Well, we could actually do it. So the first move is actually going to be pawn to f6. This time I'm not concerned about this because I'm going to promote in no time. And if the pawn takes, which is the only option they have right now, I'm going to do exactly what I did before. I'm going to take this pawn. There's no checkmate anymore. He needs to go after these pawns, but now I'm going to create my passed pawn. He has to take me to slow me down, and then a4, king e5, and now I have my obstruction. Pawn to d6, he's forced to take or push. We know that pushing is not an option because he's going to be blocked by his own pawn. So when he takes, I'm going to now create the other obstruction. So I need to obstruct the path of the king through here. So pawn takes, and I'm gone. The king is going to come over, and my king gets to the end before he can take us. So again, guys, this is really complex. I know it, and these endgames are boring, but now you can see how elegant, how nice this idea of obstruction could be. Like I said at the beginning, this is not enough. Now I'm going to show you how you could train on your own, because this is the most important thing. You need to do this, practice consistently like you do with the other tactics. So this is what I do. I'm here on chess.com. So I just go to puzzles, and when I click on it, I'm going to hit custom, and I'm going to choose, guys, interference. So obstruction is also known as interference. So you click on it and then you hit start, and that's going to allow you to do a lot of exercises with interference. So I'm going to do a couple just for you guys to see it. So I'm going to hit start, and here we have the first one. So the white pieces to move, and I think this one has to do with the fact that I want to take this pawn, but he's defended by the queen. So I'm thinking, what if I could obstruct this queen? So I'm thinking knight d6, I'm threatening checkmate on b7. So they either take me or they come over to defend. If they just come over to defend, I'm going to take on c6 because my knight is already on d6. If when I go knight d6, they take me, then this pawn is going to be here obstructing the queen. So I could take on c6 followed by rook b1. So knight d6, I'm sacrificing the knight because now the queen cannot protect the pawn. So check, followed by checkmate. All right, so I'm gonna hit next, and this is going to be the last one, guys. So I already realized that I have these two pieces ready to take on f2. So who's the only defender? The queen. So how can I create an obstruction? I'm thinking of trying to deflect it. I'm thinking of trying to eliminate it, but I can't. So what if I could go rook d2, the knight could take me, but then that's going to create the obstruction. So rook d2, then I take on f2, and with my rook and queen double tap on the 7th rank, this is going to be dangerous. So he had to give me the queen, I take, and now I'm already winning. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope this was useful. Now, remember, it's time for you to practice whenever you have a chance. I'll see you next class, and if you have any questions, like always, let me know in the comments section. So until next time.